Good evening, everyone. I'm Vishal Salsekar, and today we are going to cover the News Today articles for 9th and 10th of November. Right. So, in today's discussion, we are going to cover 5 important articles in detail, which includes the first article regarding the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987. So, as far as the legal aid is concerned, which is also the part of the TPSP of India, this particular topic is very, very important. UPSC also keeps on focusing upon this particular topic. Next is regarding the Aditya-L1 mission, which is India's solar mission, right? So, there are certain significant breakthrough as far as this particular mission is concerned. We are going to see the technicalities regarding this mission, and along with that, certain other things which are important from UPSC perspective. Next is regarding the Minamata Convention agrees to ban the dental amalgam by 2034. So, what Minamata Convention is, what are the properties of mercury, right? Why it is important and why this particular convention was important in order to prevent toxicity and certain other aspects. Those particular things we are going to discuss. Next is regarding the soil organic carbon. So, why it is important and how the soil or organic carbon is going to improve upon the quality of soil as far as the productivity is concerned and the other things with respect to the soil, right? So, we are going to discuss that also, and in the end we are going to talk about the exclusive economic zone of India related fishing rules. So, since India is having more than 7,000 kilometers of the coastal boundaries, right? And along with that, when there are much coastal boundaries, there is bound to be the greater exclusive economic zone. And that gives India an advantage regarding the high fishing zone in those particular EEZ region. So, we will talk in detail regarding the EEZ, the concept of EEZ, and what are the key rules that were introduced as a part of these rules. Next, we are going to talk in the personality in news regarding Shri Chittaranjan Das, who is also known as popularly with the title of Deshbandhu. Then there are certain other quick updates that we are also going to see roughly from the prelims perspective. So let's start the discussion with the very first article regarding the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987, which marks the 30 year of implementation. So since in 2025 we are considering that 30 years of its implementation, that means it might have started implementing somewhere around like 1995 onwards. So this particular act was legislated in 1987, but there were a lot of things that needed to be done in order to create the nationwide authority, in order to create different level, in order to provide the legal aid to all the masses, right? And in that particular context, this particular aspect is important from examination perspective. In 2024 also UPSC had asked the question regarding the legal aid and the associated aspect. Now from the GS paper 2, polity, judiciary, governance, this is important. Governance perspective says statutory body like the Legal Services Act 1987 creates the NALSA at the state level, state legislative authorities, right? So basically state related authorities, not legislative one, right? Then the social justice vulnerable sections, because this particular act specifically provides the protection to the vulnerable sections. There are different vulnerable sections we are going to talk about. Now when we talk about the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987, this was implemented from November 9, 1995, and that's why this November 9 is also known as the National Legal Services Day. Now talking about the objective, as we know about by the name of the act itself, the Legal Services Authorities Act. So this particular act provides the legal aid or the legal services to those people specifically who might not be able to afford those particular legal services. So basically in that particular context, the objective is that no citizen should suffer from the economic or the other barriers. Maybe a chance that you might not be aware that what kind of legal aid that you might get. Maybe a chance that economically you might not find yourself suitable in order to pursue any specific case. Socially, you might be the disadvantageous sections of society. So in all those particular sense, this act is going to help a lot with respect to getting the legal aid. Now talking about the institutional framework, in this particular act, the institutional framework talks about that there is a National Legal Services Authority. which is at the national level. So there is a 3-tier framework that has been created. So there is the National Legal Services Authority. So this particular National Legal Services Authority is going to be headed by the CGI, who is the patron in chief, right? And this National Legal Services Authority is at the apex or the national level in this entire framework of the Legal Services Authorities Act. Now at the state level, there is the State Legal Services Authorities, not obviously as I previously mentioned regarding the state assemblies, so it was misspelled for this. So State Legal Services Authorities, which is headed by the Chief Justice of the concerned state high court, right? So the Chief Justice of the concerned high court is the patron in that particular context, or the chief or the head in that particular context. Talking about at the district level, District Legal Services Authority, DLSA. So NALSA at the national level, SLSA at the state level, and the DLSA at the district level. That is the entire framework of the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987. Now, talking about the eligibility, that what kind of eligibility you should be having in order to get qualified under this particular act, that you will also be able to pursue your case under this. So, whether you are a member of SC or ST, then women and the children, victim of trafficking or disasters, mentally ill or differentially abled, or industrial workmen, or the person in custody, or income below prescribed limit, which is like 5 lakh for the Supreme Court cases, right? So these are certain criterias which are fixed in order to pursue the cases or get eligibility under this Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987. Talking about that, further state can decide the threshold if one want to pursue the case under the other headers. So there should be the income criteria which can be set as like from 1 lakh to 3 lakh, that can be kept, that people also will be eligible. Then for the senior citizens, the eligibility criteria related rules will be defined by the respective state. So respective state government and the concerned state legal services authorities will be responsible for that. Now, talking about the Legal Service Authorities Act of 1987, there are certain other important provisions that need to be discussed from this particular article's perspective. So, see, it's not a free thing that obviously ऐसा तो नहीं होगा कि the lawyers who are providing you the services or the people who are pursuing your cases, right? So, in that particular context, obviously it's not free. So, the who will be giving the money? So, this particular legal aid fund that is being created, and that legal aid fund is going to provide the money. So, you, if you are an eligible personality, you should not be paying, but the legal aid fund is going to provide you the amount, and that obviously not to you but on your behalf to the person who is contesting your case. So at the national, state and the district aspect mein, there is the legal aid fund that is being created, which is going to help you with respect to this court related procedures, the court fees, filing, the advocate related fees, right? So all these fees are part of this. Now along with that, this Legal Services Authorities Act also creates the Lok Adalat. So many a time it happens that certain cases are in such a nature that can be settled even amicably. So in those particular contexts, out of the court settlement can also be promoted. So the alternative dispute resolution related mechanism is provided in the form of Lok Adalat. So that settles the cases amicably, including the pre-litigation matters. So जो matter either शुरू नहीं हुआ है या at the very initial stages of litigation it is, so it can be even settled out of the court also. Clear hai? Apart from that, what are the other initiatives for the legal aid? So there are certain other initiatives. For example, the Legal Aid Defense Council system for the free criminal defense under NALSA. So for the criminal related aspects or the criminal cases, the Legal Aid Defense Council system that is there. Next is regarding Disha, which is regarding the designing the innovative solutions for the holistic access to justice. So in that particular scheme, the digital access, pro bono services, that means there can be certain well motivated individuals from the advocates who want to fight certain cases which is like out of their help. So it's a kind of like their support to the people or society, that they are taking the cases in the pro bono manner, right? So designing innovative solutions for the holistic access to justice includes this also, and also the pre-litigation help, like at the very initial stages of litigation, in order to file the cases, in order to support you with respect to certain nitty-gritties. This is going to provide you the help. Next is legal literacy and the legal awareness program. So this is also there in order to make the people aware regarding the legal domain, right? The legal literacy, the awareness with respect to those things. So all these are also part of this Legal Services Authorities Act. Now this is the basic framework of the Legal Services Authorities Act. Now talking about the further things. So what is more important from the examination perspective is the analysis of that, because UPSC also keeps on asking, comparing this with respect to certain other schemes of the government, that how these particular schemes are going to help the different sections of society. Now, as this is talking about the eligibility to certain specific section, you can also see that GS paper 2 में social justice में this can be a one such solution in order to provide justice to the deprived sections of society, and this can be a well served example in that particular regard. Apart from that, obviously, when we will have to discuss regarding the analysis, we will discuss regarding the analysis also in this. But yes, right now, this much is sufficient to be discussed for this article. So like this, UPSC had asked certain questions like explain and distinguish between the Lok Adalats and the arbitration tribunals, right? Both are the alternative dispute resolution mechanism which is promoting the out of the court settlement, right? Whether they entertain the civil as well as the criminal cases. So this is from 2024. Like this, UPSC had asked also about the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987, also about the NALSA and others, right? So in those particular cases, you should be having a clear idea about the structure, should be having an idea regarding the composition, you should be having an idea regarding what are the benefits or the issues pertaining to those things. Clear? Next is regarding the Aditya-L1 mission to track the coronal mass ejections, right? So this is important obviously from the science and tech perspective. It is also important from the India's achievement in the space domain, because this is a significant achievement. India is the part of one of the elite club which has sent certain probe in order to observe the solar radiations or basically the coronal mass. Basically, corona is the outermost layer of the sun's atmosphere, and that is very important to be studied in order to have an idea regarding the coronal mass and certain other solar flares, the magnetic field and all. So from GS paper 3 science and tech, paper 2 international relations, and there is collaboration with different agencies, like in this particular context it is NASA also which is collaborating with India, right? GS paper 1 mein geography because of the solar and the other aspects. So when we talk about the coronal mass ejection, what is this coronal mass ejection? So basically, as you can see from this particular diagram, you are able to see certain solar flares that are coming out. So these are the things which is coming out of the surface, and then that is creating certain, let's say, plasma ka radiations or some type of the magnetic field also. So all these things are creating the impact on different aspects. For example, whether it is the communication system, whether it is the magnetic field of different planets, right? So in that particular context, it is important to understand that how it is behaving, what this particular coronal mass is, what it constituted of, and how that is being created, right? So these things ke liye hi we have sent the Aditya-L1 solar probe. What L1 represent here? L1 here represent its positioning. So it is placed at the Lagrange point 1, which is placed between the sun and the earth at the L1 point, which is the Lagrange point, right? So that also we will discuss. Now, coronal mass ejection, it is the large expulsion of the plasma magnetic field from the sun's corona. As I have discussed, corona is the outermost layer in the sun's atmosphere, and one of the highest temperature over the sun is being observed in the corona. Now, what has been recently observed, that using the data from the visible emission line chorograph, right? This particular instrument is part of the Aditya-L1 mission. So visible emission line coronagraph that is on board on the Aditya-L1, which has observed recently regarding the coronal mass ejection, right? So in that particular context, Indian Institute of Astrophysics in collaboration with NASA have successfully estimated the key parameters of the coronal mass ejection. And this is for the first time the visible light spectroscopic observation for the CME. So in the visible light spectrum, it is for the first time it has been observed. That's why it is also a significant breakthrough, right? Now, talking about the Aditya-L1 mission. So when we talk about the Aditya-L1 mission, it is the India's first dedicated solar mission. So like there are countries, for example, NASA is having its own, NASA and ESA are collaborating, NASA along with ESA and Japan are collaborating, China has their own mission. So similarly, now India is also part of that particular elite club, which is having its own solar probe. Now, why it is important? Obviously, a lot of things are getting influence from sun, the magnetic field of earth, even the things with respect to the temperature, the seasonal things, right? So all these things, it is important to be observed, and that's why India has sent its mission Aditya-L1 in 2023. So it is first dedicated mission launched in 2023. Which particular vehicle was used? It is the polar satellite launch vehicle that was utilized, C-57, right? The objective kya hai? Obviously, when we are talking about that, it is observing the visible emission line coronagraph se through the coronal mass ejection. So obviously, it is to understand that how the corona of the sun is behaving, right? So to understand the coronal heating, the solar wind acceleration, how this particular plasma is coming out, what is being created in the form of the magnetic field around that, and how it is impacting the other planets' magnetic field. So all these things are studied under this particular probe, right? What is the lifespan? It is kept at 5 years. The lifespan is kept at 5 years. मतलब इतना तो expected है, उसके beyond भी जा सकता है. Now talking about what are the payloads that are part of that. Payloads are basically the instrument that are attached or mount on that particular satellite or the probe which is being sent in order to observe. For example, here the observation has to be basically the sun's corona, right? So there will be certain probes which is doing the remote sensing activities. Matlab they are observing from that L1 orbit. They are observing at a distance in the sun that what kind of activities are going on, and certain objects of certain instruments that are attached to that particular probe will be understanding regarding the atmosphere, understanding regarding all the other basic things. So there are certain remote sensing payloads that are there. So there is VELC, which is the visible emission line coronagraph, that is there. Apart from that, solar ultraviolet imaging telescope, which is to understand the UV radiations that are being emitted from the sun, right? So that is there. So these are being understood or which is being observed basically through the remote sensing payloads that are attached to that. Other than that, there are certain in situ payloads that are also there in order to understand that particular atmosphere where it has been sent. So there is Aditya solar wind particle experiment. So whatever particles this particular probe is interacting, those particles को भी study करने के लिए how that interaction is, what kind of changes are being observed, right? So all these things are being understood through the in situ payloads. Apart from that, where it is placed at, as I have talked about, that it is placed at the Lagrange point 1 L1 point. So if the UPSC or maybe any other place पे if you are getting this kind of question and it is being placed that कि LEO में place किया गया, the answer will be wrong. It is not placed at the geostationary orbit or geosynchronous orbit or the low Earth orbit, right? It is placed at the Lagrange 1 point. So basically it is a point, not a single point. There are multiple points. For example, there is L1, which is between those two bodies, जहां पर दोनों का जो gravitational pull है, that is precisely equal, and that particular thing is to some extent is like that body which is placed. For example, here in this particular case, this probe, so that this centripetal force जो चाहिए होता है in order to circulate around that, that will be met. And the energy utilization will be minimal in that particular context. So basically, the objective to place anything at the L1, L2, L3, L4, L5 point is that the gravitation cancels each other and that particular thing is equal to the centripetal force which is required, so that there will be even the observation that will be there and the energy utilization will be minimal, right? So here in this particular context, it is placed at L1. Now what are the other points? There is L2 point also. L2 point is basically kept beyond this Earth. For example, let's say, just I am giving you an idea. For example, let's say this is Sun, this is Earth. Right now probe is placed, let's say, here at L1. Now L2 point is somewhere here, right? This is L2. L3 is beyond this body, so that iska gravitation and iska gravitation will equals, and these particular equals is equal to the centripetal force which is required, right? There is L4 also, like here, L5 also. So L4, L5, ठीक है? तो like this is there. So ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ एक ही जगह पर it cancels out or equals. So this is Sun, this is Earth. Like this, there are points arranged. So चाहे यहाँ रखो, it will be depending upon obviously convenience, because this is not like कि 2 किलोमीटर 3 किलोमीटर है. It's like roughly 1.5 million kilometers. So this L1 point, which is near to Earth but 1.5 million kilometer, and if suppose करो, if you have to place something at L3, it's like way difficult because you have to go beyond Sun on that side, right? So that's the case. Now, talking about that, what are the other major solar missions that are there? So there is Hinotori, which was launched by Japan, along with that supported by the NASA and all. There is Parker Solar Probe. So this particular Parker Solar Probe, which was launched in 2018, this is the first solar probe to go nearest to Sun. So it has even passed through the sun's corona. So it has observed the corona from within that particular corona. It has beared that particular temperature of corona. So this is the Parker Solar Probe. There is the solar and the heliospheric observatory satellite SOHO, which is jointly by NASA and ESA. It is the longest lived sun watching satellite. So these are certain important facts that you can have an idea about. Obviously, see, analysis is not that much in the science and tech related articles, but obviously if it is talking about something which is like sun, on which a lot of things are dependent, right? So in that particular context, having an idea regarding that is going to help us in order to manage a lot of things, right? So that's why it is important. These particular probes are important in order to give the data from the India perspective. Clear? Now, like this, the previous year's question, like discuss India's achievement in the field of space science and technology. How has the application of this technology has helped India in its socio-economic development, right? So that's why these type of articles are important in order to give you some idea. Now, see, obviously, it's not कि एक ही article से सारे questions solve होते हैं, but I am just giving you the idea regarding this so that you will also start thinking that in this manner we have to cover the articles. Next is regarding the Minamata Convention agrees to end the use of the dental amalgam by 2034. What is the dental amalgam? So whenever there is a cavity, the cavity is being filled by certain like different elements को mix किया जाता है along with mercury and the amalgam is being created. So that particular amalgam is fitted then in your dental cavity and that is being utilizing and that is using the mercury. So this has been mentioned in the Minamata Convention, which is against the mercury use. So this particular convention says that the use of the dental amalgam will be prohibited from 2034, right? So GS paper 3, environment, because the toxicity and other things from the environmental perspective, it is also leading to a lot of diseases, right? Specifically from where the name has originated, Minamata, which is in Japan. GS paper 2, health policy and international conventions, right? Now, what is the context? So, there has been recently the 6th meeting or the conference of the parties for the Minamata Convention that is there. Now, COP generally you hear in the context of multiple agreements whenever there is, let's say, the biodiversity ka convention, CBD, there is conference of parties, the CCD, which is the convention against the desertification. In that context also you will see COP. Conference of parties, basically the conference where all the parties to that particular agreement comes, meet and then they discuss about that how we can take forward the agenda of this particular protocol or agreement, right? So in that particular context, what is being mentioned that the convention on mercury, which is Minamata Convention, to reduce the mercury pollution. So this is the basic mandate of the Minamata Convention. The global efforts to eliminate the mercury added skin lightening products is also the part of this particular agreement. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ only the mercury as an element has to be minimized, but even utilization of mercury in all the sense, which is also being utilized by many such products for the skin lightening or any other way mein that is being utilized, right? Now, talking about mercury, since this particular article gives an idea regarding the Minamata Convention, which is focusing on mercury. So let's discuss briefly regarding the properties of mercury from the basic science perspective or science and technology. This can come very, very handy. Now, the symbol, atomic symbol is Hg, right? So it is a naturally occurring heavy silvery white transition metal with atomic number 80. देखो इतना डिटेल में तो नहीं पूछेगा, but generally this type of things like the properties can be asked. Heavy silvery white transition metal and the symbol is Hg. Now it is ductile, means you can elongate it in the form of the wires, right? Then malleable, it can be malleable also. It can conduct the heat, it is the conductor of heat, and that's why you have seen the utilization of mercury. Obviously every one of you might have seen the utilization in the form of thermometer that we were utilizing, right? And also the barometers and all. So that is there. Also it is a conductor of electricity. So these particular things are the properties. Now one more thing which is very, very important, that it is the only metal, naturally occurring metal, which is liquid at the room temperature. That's what is also important. Now how we are getting mercury? So there are the natural sources also, certain anthropogenic sources that are also there. So natural sources mein there are volcanic eruptions. So those volcanic eruption create some ashes and other. So these eruptions creates the generation of mercury also, and that can be that can be accumulated, right? And even apart from that, the emission from the ocean can also give rise to the mercury and associated pollution related to mercury. Now, what about the anthropogenic? So there is mining. During the gold mining, there is also the mercury that you get. Apart from that, fossil fuel combustion, that also gives to some extent the mercury and other contaminants, right? Fossil fuel combustion, then the metal and the cement production. So this is also generated as a byproduct in also certain type of processes. Now this is regarding the mercury. Now talking about the usage. So the usage, as I was talking about, that thermometer is there, barometer is there, then the fluorescent lighting is there, then certain batteries, dental amalgam, even skincare products, right? So in all these cases, the mercury is being utilized directly or indirectly. Now talking about the toxicity, so it is emitted in the air and then eventually settles over the water because of its heavier nature, right? And when this particular water is being consumed by different microorganism and later on by certain other animals, maybe the fishes and others, right? So this basically converted into the methyl mercury, and when this is being taken up by certain marine animals, for example, let's say there is fish or any other type of marine animals. So in that particular context, it is leading to the bioaccumulation. I mean, the percentage of mercury is getting increased in the form of methyl mercury. And this bioaccumulation is causing a lot of difficulty. And later on, suppose karo in the food chain, if it is increasing further, so this also leads to the biomagnification. Means that percentage is magnifying in the higher trophic levels. So that bioaccumulation and biomagnification is the major issue jahan par concentration is getting increased. Lastly, talking about the exposure. So exposure can be very much toxic. So it can affect the nervous system, kidney, skin, eye, digestive system, immune system. So basically the exposure is harmful for the body and entire immune system and the other systems that are pertaining to the body. Now, talking about the Minamata Convention, because in this entire article we have started this article by the Minamata Convention ka context. So this convention is a globally legal binding treaty regarding what? Regarding the prohibition of the mercury and the associated utilization. So protect from the adverse effect of mercury. So it was signed in 2013 and then came into effect or entered into the force from 2017. Now, on whose name it was named? So it was named after the Minamata Bay of Japan, jahan par it was observed that a lot of toxicity was basically available in the people of that particular region, and that's why this convention was named after that specific region, right? Now membership includes 153 countries, which also includes India. That is important fact. The UPSC can also ask. Now UNEP, which is the United Nations Environment Program, serves as the secretariat to this particular convention. Clear? So this is regarding the Minamata Convention and also the things related to mercury. Now talking about the previous year question, how you can get the questions like this. So what are the impediments in disposing the huge quantities of the discarded solid waste which are continuously being generated? How do the safely remove of the toxic waste that have been accumulating in our habitable environment? So I'm just giving you an idea regarding ki dekho, heavy metal contamination is one such issue where you can fit this also along with that e-waste generation. We have seen there are multiple policies that government is running in order to recycle those particular products, even now for the critical minerals, right? National Critical Mineral Mission is there. So in those particular contexts, you can see these type of questions that can be asked. Even apart from that, very simple questions, including they will give the convention name. For example, Rotterdam Convention, they might give Basel Convention, they might give any other type of convention, and in front of that, that will talk about the objective. Briefly, that objective. Similarly, Minamata Convention and objective. So like this match the following ke form, maybe they can easily ask these type of questions. Next is regarding the soil organic carbon. So the ICAR conducts the study to assess the various factors impacting the soil organic carbon. Indian Council for Agricultural Research conduct the study to assess the various factors of impacting the soil organic carbon. Now, when we are talking about soil, when we are talking about agriculture, obviously it is important from GS paper 3, agriculture and the environment related aspects. Also apart from that, the soil and the things associated with soil, and even apart from that, GS paper 1, jahan par soil factor affecting the soil formation and all, that is important. The weathering and other phenomena are important from that perspective. Now, talking about that, this article starts with the soil organic carbon. What is the soil organic carbon? So you know that in soil there are different constituents. There are certain organic materials that are also available, which are part of that particular soil, right? So this particular thing is talking about the carbon component in that particular organic material that is available in the soil, and that is known as the soil organic carbon. So simply, it is talking about the organic material that is pertaining to the soil, and in that organic material, it is about the carbon composition in that particular organic soil. Now, talking about that, what all it includes both dead and decayed material, along with that the living beings. But living beings, it is limited to very limited set. For example, let's say there are certain bacteria, there are fungi, right? So all these are available, which are also talking about, and which gives the increment in this particular organic matter and the carbon component को increase करते हैं, right? So it includes the living and the dead organic materials in the soil, such as the plants, soil organisms, right? Along with that, the animal material, the fecal materials also, which are part of that. But it does not include those things which are fresh and undecomposed. So fresh and undecomposed को नहीं include करते, including the plant material which is on the surface. So जो plant है अभी surface पे, which is not decomposed, that is not part of this particular soil organic carbon. So dead and decayed material, along with that those living beings which are helping in order to digest and utilize these particular things in converting that in the form of the organic matter, right? Now, basically there are certain correlations are being mentioned over here. For example, when there is more carbon in the soil, when there is more carbon, more organic material, that will help in water retention comparatively more, and that will also promote the or absorb the heat from the atmosphere in that particular region. So that's why it is being said कि भाई the soil should be rich in the organic carbons. Now, talking about what are the key finding of this particular ICAR का research. So it is talking about that it is negatively correlated with the temperature. So what it tells, that suppose karo if the temperature increases, the basic decomposition in that particular context increases, right? And that is negatively correlating with the temperature. So अगर temperature बढ़ता है तो process ज़्यादा बढ़ता है, decomposition वाला process. On the other hand, when the temperature is comparatively cool, that particular soil will be having comparatively more organic carbons. That's why generally it is being observed, not exactly कि हमेशा ही होता है, but generally it is being observed that at the higher altitudes you are having comparatively more carbon rich soil because of the lesser temperature. Generally this is being observed. Now talking about the soil organic carbon, it is declined also because of the imbalanced fertilizer application, for example in the soil generally, and generally it is being observed like in the Haryana, Punjab, Western UP, जहाँ पर fertilizer utilization is comparatively more. So here you are observing that the urea and the phosphorus is more in the soil because of the higher utilization of the fertilizer in the soil, and that's why the availability of the soil organic carbon is comparatively lesser. So this is the issue. Along with that, certain cropping pattern के context में भी it is being observed that when we talk about the rice based or the pulse based cropping system, that is leading to generation of more soil organic carbon as compared to when we are planting wheats, right? Wheat. So in that context, rice based and the pulse based cropping system is supporting more soil organic carbon. Talking about the micronutrient, so when there is low soil organic content that is there, that is leading to the higher deficiency of the micronutrient. तो micronutrient भी comparatively कम होंगे if there is lesser soil organic carbon content. Now this I have already talked about that elevation. When we go to higher elevation, comparatively there is lesser temperature. When there is lesser temperature, there is higher soil organic carbon का content, because that dead and decayed material is there in that particular form for a longer period of time. Clear? So that is regarding the soil organic carbon. Now talking about the recommendation, what recommendations are being provided? So if you have to increase, because see, this is an important thing in order to make the soil fertile, in order to increase the productivity, in order to help retention of more and more moisture in the soil, right? So in that context, what is being talked about, that promote the plantation, because if there will be more plantation, there is comparatively cooling down effect, and that leads to the higher soil organic carbon generation. So cover the soil with the crops, try to establish the large number of plantation. Plantation is obviously, it is not talking about the monoculture ही होना चाहिए, but there should be plantation with having the comparatively denser cover. Talking about the further people who are promoting these type of activities, so there should be some kind of facilitation also. So facilitation of the carbon credit. So there should be incentivization of those farmers who are basically helping in trap more and more carbon in the soil. So who are able to trap more carbon dioxide from the soil and to convert it into the soil organic carbon, because you are addressing two issues. First, you are improving upon the soil quality. Soil productivity is getting increased. Along with that, carbon dioxide is also getting utilized in that particular process. So the greenhouse gases emission is also getting reduced. Or emission reduced nahi bhi ho raha hai, तो basically you are trapping that particular greenhouse gases, encouraging carbon sequestration. So that's what I was talking about. Promote the carbon sequestration by changing the cropping pattern. So that's how you can utilize this particular soil organic carbon to the benefit, right? Now, talking about the last article, which is regarding the center's notification regarding sustainable harnessing of the fisheries in the EEZ rules. So there are certain rules that are being notified by the center regarding what? Regarding the sustainable harnessing of the fisheries in the EEZ region. Now here, fisheries basically part of the broader agriculture food security, so that becomes part of the GS paper 3, economy and environment. Even food security, food processing mein it can be important. GS paper 2 mein, because we are talking about that when there are a lot of communities which are dependent on these type of like activities, for example fishing, for example mariculture, right? So in that context, this is also important from the governance perspective. Talking about even GS paper 1, so EEZ concept, maritime boundaries, these are important because these are certain geographical phenomena. Clear? So even in international relations, we talk about the exclusive economic zone. Now, what is this particular concept? We will talk about that. Let's first discuss regarding the concept of EEZ. What is EEZ basically? So see, simply when we talk about that any specific country is having the coastal boundary. So how to decide? Because we know that land boundary is the sovereign territory of that particular country. But what about the maritime domain? How that sovereignty is defined? So suppose karo, if the boundary is ending over here, so there is some line or the line which is being drawn जो कि roughly this particular region में को एक contiguous region बनाती है. So from there when we calculate the 12 nautical mile, so from the territorial boundary of that country roughly 12 nautical mile tak, this entire sea region is known as the territorial sea, which is the sovereign boundary of that particular nation state. Matlab, this is for all the purposes is the sovereign territory of that country. Talking about that, what if suppose if there is a thief, for example an artificial thief came here and theft something from here and then is running out of this region. So in that particular context, what if that particular person is able to cross this 12 nautical mile का zone? क्या इंडिया के लॉज एप्लीकेबल नहीं होंगे? सो द आंसर इज नो. द इंडियाज लॉज विल बी एप्लीकेबल till the contiguous zone, because this contiguous zone is created in order to create a buffer state, buffer region between this territorial sea and the high seas. So in that particular region, contiguous zone में the laws of that particular coastal state will be applicable, and this is in order to ensure a symmetry with, matlab, if there is anything that has to be done in order to maintain the law and order or any other scenario, that contiguous zone is being utilized, right? So 12 nautical mile further from the territorial sea is the contiguous zone. Now talking about that, what about the economic sovereignty, और क्या इस पूरे region में ही India या फिर any other country which is claiming that particular region is having access to the resources, because in that particular sea there is the ocean bed also, there are a lot of resources. For example, polymetallic nodules are there, there are fisheries resources are there. Who is going to control that? So is this global common? The answer is no. So when we talk about the India ka territorial boundary से लेकर 200 nautical mile, so this is known as the exclusive economic zone. So from here till the 200 nautical mile, it is the exclusive economic zone. Means when we talk about exclusive, means only for that particular country jiska wo region hai, that means for India. Economic means the economic right or the economic sovereignty is there or rest with that country. Matlab the economic resources that will be available over here, for example generation of the renewable energy, the extraction of the maritime resources, for example fisheries, or mariculture related activity or utilization of the blue economy, that particular region belongs to that country. For example, here in this case, it is India. So 200 nautical mile tak it is the territory of India in economic domain. But there will be navigation by different countries that can be there. But for the economic purposes, it is the sovereignty, economic sovereignty of India. After that, beyond that, there is the high seas. मतलब वो global common है, that is open for all. This is regarding the EEZ. So, talking about that, who has given the criteria or definition of this? So it was decided by the 1982 का United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UN clause, which has decided this, right? Now talking about this, it is extending up to 200 nautical mile immediately from the offshore of the country's land coast. Exclusive economic rights provides the exploration and the exploration of the natural resources in EEZ. So it is with the country. Now in that particular rules that we are going to see, about to see just now, so the fisheries resources originated from the India's EEZ will be recognized as Indian origin. So that's what is now clearly affirmed, that they will be considered as the Indian origin fisheries, right? Now talking about what are the key rules or what are the key important aspect regarding the rules in the EEZ related fishing. So for it is basically done in order to ensure that India is having the vast coastline in order to utilize that particular coastline. So realizing the vision of the prosperous and the inclusive blue economy, unlocking the untapped potential of 11,000 plus coastline. Now you might be thinking I was telling more than 7,000 something kilometer, but you have not included here the Lakshadweep, you have not included Andaman and Nicobar. So when you are talking about including all the island territories, that is more than 10,000, 11,000 kilometer. That gives a vast EEZ. मतलब हर territory से roughly 200 nautical mile extending. What if there is any other country situated in that 200 nautical mile ka region? So the EEZ will be decided on the line equidistant between those countries. For example, India, Sri Lanka में it's not possible कि दोनों के पास अपना अपना 200 nautical mile का space हो. So in that context, it is in between those countries that line dividing is deciding the EEZ of the country. So talking about the rules, first the cooperative and the community led model. So it is being talked about that the fishermen cooperatives को priority दी जाएगी, will provide the priority to the fishermen cooperatives, fishermen farmer producer organization in order to do the deep sea fishing, and also they have introduced the concept of the mother and child vessel. What is this mother and child vessel? Just assume with this particular example, very simplistic one. So suppose karo this is a large vessel. This is being accompanied by the smaller vessel. Now smaller vessel will be having the limited capacity. So what this will do? This will do fishing, and then there will be transshipment, means यहाँ से जो भी produce आया that will be shipped to the mother vessel, and this can do comparatively more fishing. So see, this is a large vessel, maneuverability is comparatively less, but it can hold or provide significant resources to the smaller vessels. So there is a concept of the mother and child vessel, means child vessel will do a lot of things, mother vessel is going to support that with the resources, and child vessel is going to provide the available resources which are captured to the mother vessel for the through the transshipment process. So the mother and child vessel concept. Now talking about the comprehensive support and the capacity building. So there is a need for credit, there is a need for capacity building, there is a need for skill development and all, right. So easy affordable credit under the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana that was being created in order to develop the fisheries. So credit availability for the fisheries, aquaculture infrastructure development fund, ठीक है. So there is the fisheries and the aquaculture infrastructure development fund. So that particular fund के through भी funding and the support is being provided. Apart from that, promoting the sustainable fishing and the mariculture. So see, when we are talking about, let's say, the deep trawler fishing, so sometimes that can become unsustainable also if it is being done in too mechanized manner, because it takes a lot of biodiversity out of the ocean body. So that's why there is a need for promoting this sustainable fishing, जहाँ पर whatever unsustainable thing that can be prevented should be prevented. For example, curbing the harmful practices. For example, LED light fishing. So generally क्या होता है, some fishing vessels are posing or putting a lot of LED lights in order to attract the fisheries, and then they are catching that. So these things are banned. Apart from that, the pair trawling. Generally क्या होता है, for example, assume that this is trawler 1, this is trawler 2, there is a net attached to that on the sides of that, and they are moving in the same direction. All the fisheries and other biodiversity is getting caught in that. So do you think only the fisheries are getting caught? A lot of biodiversities, many a time coral related things, those things are also getting attached to that, and that is destroying a lot of ocean based biodiversity. That's why the pair trawling or the bull trawling, that is also synonymously utilized, that is also being prohibited. Talking about the fisheries management plans, so with the concerned state government, there are proposal of the fisheries management plan, mariculture practices in order to promote the maritime जो भी products निकल रहे हैं, for example, it is fisheries and the associated aspects. So those things should be promoted in a sustainable manner, right? So these are being provided. Along with that, the mechanized and the large sized motorized vessel through the online real craft portal. So only the genuine ones and only those which are registered, those only can get the access. Clear hai? So there is an aspect of prioritization, there is an aspect of support through the combination of the vessels, there is comprehensive support and capacity building through credit availability, infrastructure development fund, there is also sustainable fisheries development, curbing the harmful practices, and also registration and also transparency that is being promoted. So this is what is being talked about in the highlights of the EEZ related rules for the sustainable harnessing of fisheries in India. Okay? So this is the holistic context of this. Let's discuss about the personality in news, and today's personality in news is Shri Chittaranjan Das. The time period mentioned is 1870 to 1925. A prominent personality associated with Congress, and later on a revolutionary step within the Congress after the non-cooperation movement, which was terminated in such a manner that was a shock to the entire nation, and that's why in order to utilize that particular gap period between the activities of the Congress, this was being utilized by the personality of Chittaranjan Das by promoting the Swaraj party, right? So that we are going to discuss. So recently Lok Sabha speaker paid tribute to the freedom fighter Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das. Now see, last year UPSC in 2025 they have asked a question regarding who supported legally or who legally aided the trial of those who were caught in, I think, Chauri Chaura wale log. ठीक है? So in that particular context, there was personality. Madan Mohan Malviya was involved. So similarly, Chittaranjan Das के बारे में भी पूछा जा सकता है. So he is known as the Deshbandhu. Successfully defended the Aurobindo Ghosh in the Aripur bomb conspiracy case, which is also known as Maniktola conspiracy case, right? Defended the councils in the Dhaka conspiracy case. So he was associated with those people who were involved, let's say, in the revolutionary activities, but he later on defended those in the court cases, right? Participated in the non-cooperation movement and later on President of India in 1922 in the Gaya session, which was held in Bihar. Swaraj party, this I was talking about, along with the father of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Shri Motilal Nehru, he along with Vittal Bhai Patel in 1923 in order to ensure that the council entry should be permitted within the Congress. That's why in order to prevent any break-up fraction of the Congress, this formation of the Khilafat Swaraj party that was allowed within the Congress, that is allowed to take participation in the election and then to get participation in the assembly. Established the National University at Dhaka, first elected mayor of the Calcutta Municipal Corporation, right, 1924 mein. There are certain newspaper, because this also UPSC can ask, like the fact, Forward, which was later named as Liberty, and Subhash Chandra Bose was also one such editor of this particular newspaper. Books, India for Indians, Freedom Through Disobedience, right? And Subhash Chandra Bose was also ardent follower of Shri Chittaranjan Das. That's why the personality is very, very important from examination perspective. Now, having discussed about him, let's discuss certain other quick updates. First is regarding Malabar exercise. Now, we have multiple times discussed Malabar exercise, even in the context of Quad also. So, recently, the Sahyadri, INS Sahyadri participated in the recent edition of the Malabar naval exercise. And where it was held? It is in the Guam. Location of Guam can be asked. So it is a strategic US military base in the Western Pacific Ocean. What is this Malabar exercise? What is the objective? Objective is to strengthen the cooperation between the navies of different countries. Which are those countries which are taking participation? So these are the Quad countries, which includes the India, Australia, Japan and US, which are taking participation in the Malabar exercise. That's why it is important. Next is regarding molasses. So Union government has recently allowed reduction of 50% export duty on the molasses. Now what is this molasses? So that particular thing is important from examination perspective. So it is a byproduct, means the output that is coming out of the processing of the sugar beet and the sugarcane refinement. So वहाँ से जो output आता है और byproduct, or we can to some extent say some kind of waste that is getting generated from that particular refining process. So it is a dense viscous liquid. What color? It is a dark brown tint color. ठीक है, rich in sugars, along with that containing the small percentage of water also. Okay, so not a refined one, but a sugar which is containing a lot of minerals also and the water also. It is also known as the exhausted honey or the poor honey, right? It contains nutrients such as calcium, iron, magnesium, potassium, similar amount of the calories other than the liquid sugars like honey. So similar type का properties show करता है like honey. That's why it is also known as the exhausted honey or poor honey, right? Key application क्या है? Obviously the beverage production में this molasses is being utilized. Ethanol production is one such prominent application. That's why it is important. Fertilizer production, right? So that's why molasses is important. Next is regarding the functional food and the smart protein. So recently these were mentioned to some extent in the news. That's why these terms are important. Having an idea about that is going to help you in eliminating certain things from the answer. So functional food. What are these functional food? Functional food, as the name suggests, they are promoting certain function. Generally क्या होता है? That the food you are taking is to intake certain nutrients, micro and the macronutrients. So in that particular context, these functional foods are going beyond that. So what kind of benefit it is providing? It is giving the health benefit beyond the natural nutrition जो होता है. So either naturally or leveraged through certain technologies. For example, you might have heard of the fortified rice. So there is biofortification process जहाँ से fortified rice मिलता है. Then 3D food printing, bioprocessing, nutrigenomics, right? So artificially or enhancing the property of certain food product, you are creating certain functional food. For example, like in the textile के context में, there are certain functional textiles are there, right? So in that context, this is there. Vitamin enriched rice, omega-3 fortified milk, probiotic yogurt, right? So these are certain functional food which are helping in order to promote certain functions. ठीक है, they can be naturally available or sometime by enhancing the property of certain food material. Now what are smart proteins? Now generally we know there are certain natural sources of protein, but smart protein is utilizing certain technology again in order to get the maximum out of certain things. In some less calories you are getting more protein content. For example, protein source from through the biotechnology process to reduce the reliance on the conventional production. Generally either you are taking from the milk, right, milk whey. Other than that, the plant proteins are there. So it is plant-based proteins, fermentation-derived protein, cultivated meat, right? So basically, in order to reduce the reliance on certain conventionally available food resources and to give diversity, that's why these smart proteins are being utilized. Next is regarding biochemical markers. So recently, Indian researchers have identified the biochemical markers in the blood that could help in detect the kidney complication in the diabetic patient. Simply, in very simple term, what are these biochemical markers? In very simple term, these are those particular signs in your body that can give an idea that there are certain issues that are there. For example, generally how you are getting to know that there might be a cancer. If there is certain, let's say a small amount of cancerous cells are getting developed, right? And that particular thing later on develop in a form of full-fledged cancer. There are certain things, for example, let's say sugar spike in your certain test reports, and through that you can get to know that in future you might be affected with the sugar. So like this, these are certain symbols that body exhibit that in the longer run there may be certain diseases. So for example, small molecules like the sugar, amino acid, lipids produced during the metabolic processes that in the body and that are used by doctor to ascertain certain disease risk. For example, cholesterol. You know that if there is a more cholesterol, that is the chances of heart attack are also more. Similarly, the component for identifying kidney complications. So these are certain things that can get in order to understand that whether the kidney related complication can be there. So arabitol is there, then inositol is there, then other things that are there with respect to giving an idea that there are certain kidney complications that may be there in the future, right? So these are basically the indicator that gives you an idea that in future there may be certain diseases, some type of issues that your body might be contaminated with. Next is regarding the sustainable aviation fuel. So recently government is going to announce a sustainable aviation fuel policy. Aviation fuel, we know that in order to utilize that in the your aviation process, that particular fuel is being utilized. So there is a different category of the fuel that is being utilized. So aviation fuel made from the non-petroleum feedstock. We are talking about the sustainable aviation fuel from the non-petroleum feedstock, that is reducing the emission in the air transportation, because obviously the air transportation also causes some amount of pollution, but in that particular context, if we are utilizing it from the non-petroleum feedstock, there are chances that the pollution can be reduced. It can help reducing the carbon emission obviously also by 80% compared to the conventional fuels. Sources क्या है? The waste fats है, oils, greases, right, that we are already utilizing, the municipal solid waste, agricultural waste, forest residue, right. So these are certain things from which you can get and extract the alternative fuels or sustainable aviation fuel. Benefit क्या है? Engine and infrastructure compatibility. It will do the lesser emissions, so the greenhouse gases emission will be reduced, and basically the targets that we are taking in the form of the intended nationally determined contribution, that can also be reduced with the conventional jet fuel के context. Now, next is regarding the DNA's double helix structure. So, there was DNA के लिए Nobel Prize was provided to James Watson, who was a prominent personality behind the discovery of the DNA's double helix structure. He has died recently, so in that context, this is important to know. So, double helix type of structure है, जो कि hereditary module है. DNA is the hereditary module that we get from the parents, right? So you can see there are certain base pairs. What are these base pairs? So these are the proteins that are available. So these are the proteins that are the nitrogenous bases, including adenine, guanine, cytosine, and the thiamine, right? And these are connecting this double helix structure में strands को connect करते हैं, and there is a bond that is being created between two nitrogenous जो base है उसके बीच में, that is known as the hydrogen bond. So that is there. Now it consists of the two strands of DNA twisted around one another and connected in the center by the hydrogen bonds. Clear hai? So this is regarding the DNA's double helix structure. Next is regarding the Montreal Protocol. So recently the 37th meeting of parties, MOP or Conference of Parties, these are similar only, of Montreal Protocol on the substances that deplete the ozone layer has happened. So you know that Montreal Protocol is to curb out the substances which are helping or aiding depleting of the ozone depleting substances, right? Now, there have been certain discrepancies that were being observed. So discrepancies in the hydrofluorocarbons emission reported and between the reported data and the measured data. So that's what is being highlighted in this particular conference. Lack of atmospheric monitoring station in many such regions, because how you are going to get to know that there is certain issues with respect to the ozone layer. So you have to have certain monitoring station, and if they are not available, obviously you will not be able to track that whether there is a progress or there is some issues, right? Signed in 1987. Which particular thing it is related to? It is related to the ozone layer depleting substance. We have to curb out that. It is also associated with the Vienna Convention, which is regarding the same thing only, implemented under the Vienna Convention adopted in 1985. It is globally legally binding treaty to eliminate the production and the use of the ozone depleting substances. So again, regarding the ozone depleting substances. Lastly, the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol, which was done in 2016 in order to even include certain GHGs, greenhouse gases also, which and phase down the production and consumption of the HFCs, which are basically the greenhouse gases and were not included in the Montreal Protocol, but through the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol, they were included. So Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol or Kigali Amendment was associated with which particular protocol? These type of question might be there. Okay? So this is regarding the Montreal Protocol. So with this, we have completed the entire news today discussion of the 9th and 10th of November. Now there must be certain questions, try to solve them. And I hope that whatever we have discussed in this particular discussion, कुछ articles बहुत technical and factual थे. So there we have not discussed too much into the analysis, but yes, as and when the context permits, we are also talking about the analysis, and that is very, very important from the examination perspective. Today's articles were, to some extent, they were like static or providing certain dimensions. So try to now get an idea regarding that, try to solve the question that I have provided. Also the questions which is available on the portal, try to solve them, and definitely you are going to get better with the करंट अफेयर्स विद द सब्सिक्वेंट आस्पेक्ट्स. ठीक है, चलो. सो थैंक यू एवरीवन, हैव अ ग्रेट डे, विल मीट अगेन. थैंक यू.